As the camera creeps down these silent, identical hallways, it is easy to mistake the strict order of a _𝗘𝗀𝗃 for peace. This is an environment where rigid discipline often masks a culture of profound, hidden cruelty. Behind these heavy wooden doors, a strict hierarchy dictates every waking second. The students are isolated from the outside world, creating a closed ecosystem where those in power hold absolute control over those who are vulnerable. For one student, this isolation became a daily nightmare. She endured calculated, relentless physical and psychological abuse at the hands of her peers, with no allies and no means of calling for help. The teachers and administrators saw the bruises and heard the whispers, yet they chose silence. They actively turned a blind eye to the violence to protect the public image of their institution. When absolute authority meets a total lack of accountability, a school becomes a pressure cooker. Because the abusers faced zero resistance from the administration, the escalating violence was guaranteed to reach a fatal boiling point. That boiling point arrived in the form of a violent fire. Trapped behind a locked dormitory door as the flames spread, the bullied student was believed to have perished in the blaze. Instead of calling for a transparent investigation, the administration panicked. The perpetrators quickly scrubbed the scene, silenced witnesses, and buried the details of the abuse to keep the school's reputation untarnished. For a brief period, life inside the 𝗘𝗀𝗃 returned to its strict schedule. The bullies slept soundly in their beds, and the teachers convinced themselves that their problems had burned away with the evidence. Nature abhors a moral vacuum. By suffocating the truth and denying justice, the institution created a massive void, one that practically invited a supernatural force to step in and balance the scales. The first sign of the change is a shadowy, rigid figure standing at the far end of the dormitory. Its presence is the first break in the school's clockwork routine, a visual disruption that the strict rules of the 𝗘𝗀𝗃 cannot explain or contain. This entity operates with a cruel logic. It manifests primarily when the students commit minor infractions against the dormitory rules. A missed evening prayer, a whispered conversation after lights out, triggers a terrifying appearance. These minor occurrences soon escalate into widespread panic. Cold spots form in the communal baths, disembodied whispers echo through the prayer halls, and a suffocating paranoia infects the entire student body. The entity methodically manipulates the physical layout of the school, locking heavy doors and killing the corridor lights to separate targets from the group. By utilizing the school's isolation tactics against the students, the ghost perfectly reverses the power dynamic. The exact disciplinary system designed to keep the girls in line is now the trap keeping them locked inside with a predator. The psychological terror becomes physical violence when a lead bully is isolated. She is dragged screaming into the shadows, beginning a systematic hunt. The wrath eventually extends past the student body. The entity turns its attention to the complicit teachers, the authorities who knowingly ignored the abuse and orchestrated the cover-up. This diagram tracks the symmetry of the attacks. On the left are the specific traumas the victim endured, such as being locked in small spaces or physically beaten. On the right, we see the spectral executions directly mirroring those exact torments. In a desperate bid for survival, the remaining school authorities turn to their faith. They organize mass prayers and attempt religious interventions to cleanse the dormitory grounds. These interventions fail. Holy words hold no weight against an entity born from the institution's hypocrisy. Human rituals cannot stop a force that acts as a direct physical reaction to hidden sins. The remaining survivors are cornered in the main dormitory for a final confrontation. There is no administration left to hide behind and nowhere left to run. The entity fully manifests, tearing through the room with inescapable physical power. It flips massive iron bed frames through the air, filling the space with a thick, dark miasma as it claims its final targets. This timeline maps the dates of the initial fire against the first recorded supernatural incidents. The data reveals a significant overlap. The victim was still physically alive and suffering long after the hauntings began. By closing this loop, we see that the terror didn't spring from a restless spirit, but from the raw, living agony of a victim still trapped within the school's foundations. The perpetrators weren't being haunted by a ghost. They were being hunted by the direct consequence of the girl they left to burn. Munkar demonstrates that no amount of institutional authority can bury a sin forever. When a system prioritizes its reputation over the lives of its members, the resulting trauma eventually resurfaces to claim its due. The most terrifying part of this story is the realization that the true monsters were the ones making the rules. If you found yourself trapped in those hallways, would you have spoken up or looked away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives into the darkest corners of horror cinema, make sure to like and subscribe.